Hi everybody. My name's Joanna Martin. Many of you are familiar with me. Been a part of my community or my extended community for some time. But for some of you, I know that this might have been something that just got shared with you on Facebook, or a random email came into your inbox saying, "Hey, you might be interested in this." So I just want to start by saying a big thank you for coming and joining me here today, whether you know me or not. It's really humbling to have seen the incredible response I had with having only had this message out in the ethers for literally 22 hours. I've never had a response like it. Literally hundreds and hundreds of people registered for the webinar today, and I think it's because it's just a stand for something so important and so very crucial, something that our souls are really getting and resonating with. So, first, I want to say a huge thank you for taking some time to join me in what I think will be a little bit of a bearing of my soul, and I hope will be inspiring and applicable for you as well as I take you through it. If we've not met yet, just a little bit of background on me. I used to be a doctor. Don't work as a doctor anymore. I now spend my time educating predominantly women, though not exclusively women, in business and in public speaking. And for the last 3 years now, we have been investors in the Hunger Project. When I say we, I mean my husband and I, through the work that we do with our company Shift, have been investing in the Hunger Project. And I have to be honest and say that my investment journey started as an intellectual one. I met Kathy Burke, who is the incredibly inspiring and motivated CEO of the Hunger Project in Australia. And she explained to me the way that the Hunger Project work, and it's something that I'll be sharing with you today as best I can recreate it, and forgive me any inaccuracies. But it just, like, I really got it. I really understood why it was that the Hunger Project was just so extraordinary when it comes to ending hunger. It's a different model than the usual sort of aid and service delivery model. And it really spoke to, I think, my business mind. Since then, since starting with the Hunger Project, I have had the pleasure of meeting amazing other investors, such as David Gonski, who is the chair of the Australian Stock Exchange, Belinda Hutchinson, who's chair of QBE for the longest time and head of Chief Executive Women in Australia, Alison Watkins, who's an incredible woman, who's the CEO of GrainCorp. And I think her daughter Grace is on the line with us today too. So good to see you, Grace. Grace was traveling with me through Bangladesh, the most incredibly inspiring young woman. Just amazing. I'll share all about it as we go here. But all of these incredible movers and shakers in corporate and business Australia, who when they speak about the Hunger Project, speak so clearly about it's because of the model and the way that it works that is such a reason that they give. And I've just had that reinforced for me. But it wasn't until 10 days ago I got on a plane and left London and flew into Dhaka, into Bangladesh, to see the work of the Hunger Project. It took it out of the realm of kind of the intellect and of an inspiring concept, and really got it nestled very firmly in my heart. And it's that, though. I went on this trip. I have to be honest. I didn't really know what to expect. I went with a group of 15 other Australian women through Business Chicks in Australia, which is for those of you over here on the London, UK side of the world. Business Chicks is a women's networking organisation, fantastic organisation, headed up by Emma Isaacs out there. And I'd never met these 15 women that I went on this trip with before we arrived. The most incredibly beautiful group of women we travelled around with. And all of us were there to not just, to help. That was a real distinction. It wasn't just about us going and helping. It was about us going to see what we could learn. It really was a leadership immersion experience for us. And for me, it is the most profoundly life-changing thing that I have ever done in my life, bar nothing. I'll get back to you on the birth of my first child. I'm sure that'll be up there, but until that moment, this is really honestly just shift. I feel like I've totally realigned, and it's that I want to share just in this really short webinar today, and I hope that I can inspire something in you that will at least give you some inspiration for today or for the weekend, maybe the month, maybe like me, you'll heed the call and really step up and let this be an inspiration for you for a lifetime, because that's what's available with this work. I went, as I said, started to say there, I went to Bangladesh kind of not knowing what to expect. I was sort of expecting perhaps that I would feel pity, to see abject poverty in really vivid detail. Perhaps that I would feel guilty for being born in Australia and being able to live in the UK, and for being, of above average wealth. I expected to really, feel those sorts of feelings, I guess. And what shocked me above everything else on this trip was that not once did I feel that. What I was consistently and ongoingly struck with was the incredible dignity and the incredible self-reliance and empowerment that I saw in the villages where the Hunger Project has been and had an impact. And honestly, I came away not just humbled, but at sometimes humiliated. I felt like, for those of you who've known me for a while, I get up to some stuff, I get some stuff done. I've built up a pretty successful business in a pretty short space of time, and so I'm not someone who's sitting around twiddling my thumbs, but I left those villages feeling lazy and feeling that I'd never seen commitment like it. And it really caused me to uh, assess, what my life was up to and up for, and I hope in sharing that with you today that that I can make a difference for you in some way, shape, or form as well. So that's what it's really all about. That's what it's really all about. So in today's webinar, what I just want to take you through, and I'm so open for questions and sharing and all of that kind of stuff as we go. I'd really love to kind of make it nice and interactive, because it's not about me. I mean, yeah, I was one of 15 incredible, or 14, I think it was 14 amazing women on this trip. But this is not about me. This is about me sharing what I got, so that I hope it can really ignite something in you. So I wanted to just briefly touch on what, having kind of, seen it in contrast to what I saw in Bangladesh, what I see as the problem for us in the West, of why perhaps we're not living the lives that we'd really love to be living. I'd like to share 3 big lessons in leadership that I took away from my time in Bangladesh. It was really hard for me to limit it to 3, because seriously, I'm sitting next to my journal right here, and it is full with lessons on leadership. Honestly, if you really want a personal development journey, don't ever come to another one of my seminars ever again. Get yourself to Bangladesh and meet the incredible women and men there who are up to some incredible stuff. I also want to share what I believe is the single biggest leadership act which is available to you right now. And by that, I mean, what is the single most powerful thing that you can do to step into who you know yourself to be as a leader? And you might not know it consciously, but you are capable of so much more than you are currently experiencing in your life, than currently expressing in your life. We all are. And that nothing was more profound to me than that real sense while I was in Bangladesh. And I've got to say, there were some moments where I was crying into my pillow, kind of beating myself up about it, of recognizing that I am so much more capable than what I express in my everyday life. And I really want to share what I believe the biggest leadership act is that you can step into. And I was amazed, as you've been registering for the webinar, As I say again, like I'm so shocked how many people kind of heeded the call in a really short space of time. Bearing in mind, I only sent an email out about this for the first time 22 hours ago. But I was also shocked when I was looking at the questions that everybody was asking when you registered for the webinar. Not everyone typed in a question, but many of you did. And 95% of the questions were, how can I get involved, and how can I support this work, because it sounds really inspiring. So I want to share that with you, and also incentivize it a little bit, give you a little bit of a Joey reward to say thanks, should you wish to step up and really step into your leadership today. So that's my invitation for you today. So let's start by having a little bit of a look at, the problem that we perhaps face in the West. And this is a very personal sharing, that today on the webinar, guys. I'm not expecting that we're going to, like, I haven't thought this through enough for it to be applicable to everybody at all times across all time. You know what I mean? It's not like I've surveyed this and found that this is the top three things. Really, this is just a personal kind of sharing of what I've kind of reflected on while I've been there, in the hope that in sharing that it perhaps sparks something for you. So this is not true, by the way. It's just coming away from 10 days where I've met, we spent just so you know kind of what it looked like. We arrived in Dhaka, which is the capital of Bangladesh, which was insane. Like, never have I seen so much traffic on the road. I was driving in from the airport at like 5 a.m., driving past these buses, and all the buses are painted in wild colors. But down the sides of the buses are like, it's scraped. And I don't just mean like, they've had one kind of car run into them. Like, I mean, fully like battered and scraped down each side of the buses. It's like, buses have been trying to fit through holes that are far too small for them. The sheer number of people in Dhaka just blew my mind. It was just incredible. And we had a day where we came together in Dhaka as a group. We then went to the Hunger Project offices in Dhaka. And it was so funny. We walked into these offices, and I have to say I was pretty shocked. It was not particularly comfortable where these guys are working. And Badil Majumdar, who's the head of the Hunger Project in Bangladesh, runs the work there out of these offices. And Kathy Burke, who I mentioned earlier, who's a dear friend of mine and the CEO of the Hunger Project, said to me as we walked into these offices, she said, very facetiously said, "So you can see, Joe, this is where all your money goes, in these beautiful offices here," being totally tongue-in-cheek and very sarcastic. It was, it's very, very basic. But out of these offices, where they have a handful of staff, the Hunger Project in Bangladesh has trained up over 250,000 volunteer educators, animators, and women leaders in Bangladesh out of these tiny little offices, and a skeleton staff. Like, it's shocking. So anyway, we had our briefing at the Hunger Project, and then in the afternoon of the next day, we traveled down to the villages in rural Bangladesh, because the Hunger Project does most of its work in the villages. And being there in the villages was the most transformational experience. Just to meet our village partners there, the people that we invest in, and the work that they've been doing was just extraordinary. After 3 days, we came back to Dhaka for a women's leadership conference, and the following day was National Girl Child Day, and just extraordinary. And I'll share all these experiences, but just to give you a big picture. And so going through all of that journey, it really contrasted so much to what I thought was important, back here at home. I think one of the key problems for us in the West is comfort. We get really comfortable, and many of us, I mean, we're totally in comfort zones. And you might say to me and swear black and blue right now, I'm not in a comfort zone. I would love to contribute to the Hunger Project, Joe, but I'm really struggling in my business, and I'm really uncomfortable at the moment, or what have you. But to be frank, we don't know discomfort. We live here in a country here in the UK, we've got free healthcare. There's housing available. I'm not for a second saying that there's not people in despair and having challenges in the UK or in Australia. Absolutely not saying that. But compared to what is present in developing countries, we really do have an incredible level of comfort available to us. There is so much support of available, uh, comparatively speaking. And I think one of the big problems that we face is we get comfortable, even if we say no, we're uncomfortable. We're comfortable in our discomfort. Does that make sense? And I think this level of comfort that we have really causes us to disconnect. And by that, I mean, we really do live in a place where this is just something that was so clear to me. In the villages, women are coming together in self help groups. And, you know, an example of this is at the Women's Leadership Conference. 1,500 women were at this conference in Dhaka. They had come from all over Bangladesh to be there. They'd saved up for 2 years, some of them, to attend this conference and be a part of it. It was just inspiring to see. I was shocked at how few children were there. I thought, gosh, it's a women's conference in Bangladesh. Like, they'll bring their children because who's going to look after the kids? There was hardly any children there. And of course, I realized, well, the village is looking after their children, their sisters, their sister-in-laws, their parents, their grandparents, they're taking care of the children back home. Of course, they've got resources. They've got this collectiveness. Over here in the West, we do everything by ourselves. We live in our little house with our little apartment, our own little backyard. We build big walls around it so our neighbors can't see in. You can live right next door to someone for 10 years and never say two words to them. And I think this really does breed such a sense of disconnection. And this disconnection that we have in the West, I believe, is what closes us off from our humanity. It's what has us be okay with the fact that there are women and children and men in places like Bangladesh who are not even eating one square meal a day. But we can be okay with that because we're disconnected. But the second you get reconnected, to another human being, and it doesn't even have to be a human being in Bangladesh, anyone, today when you go out to a coffee shop or you go to, if you're in Australia and it's Friday night, you go out to meet your friends for drinks. Like, really look in their eyes. This is one of the things that we did a lot of while we were in Bangladesh, is just really connecting and being with people. As soon as you really get being with another person, this disconnection just kind of evaporates. And all of a sudden, your heart opens to the humanity that's there in front of you. And you get that there is no difference between you and the person sitting in front of you. You get that there's no difference between their hopes and your hopes and their fears and your fears. But while we keep ourselves in this state of disconnection, we shelter ourselves from feeling anything at a very profound level. And for me, that was such an awakening to recognize just how disconnected I was from humanity and from what was possible. So that was big for me. The other, the final kind of thing that it really brought up for me being in Bangladesh and reflecting back on the problems that we have is a real search for meaning. I think once our basic survival needs are taken care of in the West, which is not very difficult. Come on, most of us on this call right now, in fact, I'd probably say all of us on this call right now, your basic survival needs have been taken care of. If you figured out a way to get on a webinar with me, your basic survival needs are taken care of. And then what comes beyond that, if we get connected, is a search for meaning, a search for what is our life about that is greater than us. And for me, that just has been so activated by being there in Bangladesh. It's just been extraordinary. It's that I want to kind of share with you. So, I mean, we've got some pretty high level problems in the West, if it's comfort, if it's disconnection, if it's a search for meaning. I'm talking by and large here, Contrast that to the problems in Bangladesh of poverty, of incredible poverty, where some families are not feeding their children every day, of hunger. And this photo that I've got here really, I posted it on Facebook yesterday. This really epitomizes hunger. A lot of people kind of when we think hunger, we think about those, World Vision ads with kids with flies in their eyes and the little pot bellies and all of that sort of stuff. But that's, that is extreme hunger. But there is a chronic hunger that has a kind of different face, and it's this face here that we saw. We visited one of the slums in Dhaka on our second day, and this little girl here. Now have a look at her, and how old do you think this little girl is? Like, have a guess for me. How old do you reckon that little girl is? Type it into me. Yeah, Nikki says 9, Michelle says 7. If you've got children, it gets pretty easy to kind of guess, right? 8, John saying maybe 11. This little girl here is 12 years old. She's 12 years old. Now, to give you can't kind of perceive her height there. But to give you an idea, my friend Kathy is about the same height as me, maybe 5'4" or so. She came up to her waist. She's a tiny little dot of a thing. This is her sister sitting on her hip here. You can see her little pot belly from chronic malnutrition. How old do you think that little girl is? Have a guess. How old do you think that little girl is? Write it into me. Let's have some guesses. This little baby on her hip. One, yeah, we've got ones, some twos, 18 months, 5 months, 6 months, maybe 3. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. This tiny little girl who can't walk, by the way. She's like not even really toddling properly. She's 2 years old, and she looks like when I met her, I thought, I said to the little girl, how old is she? I was guessing 9 months. The level of interaction and life in her eyes and her developmental capacity. I looked at her and thought, this little girl on her hip, wouldn't be more than 9 months, maybe 10 months, having just been through this with my sister's little boy. She's 2 years old. She's 2 years old, and with my medical background, I reckon she's got the developmental age of maybe, 10 months, possibly 12 months. She's only tiny. And in the slum, this was the thing that stuck out to me above all, was this. This is what hunger looks like, chronic hunger looks like. It's little children chronically malnourished, and just not growing, just not reaching developmental goals. And it's not just physical, it's mental as well. Badil, again, this incredible leader who I'll share with you a little later on about, who's the head of the Hunger Project there, told me that it was shared with all of us actually, that hunger and chronic malnutrition actually causes heart disease and diabetes in later life. And so, chronic heart disease and diabetes is supposed to be a thing of the Western world, right? Because we eat too much Big Macs and drink Coke and smoke and all of that kind of stuff. But the rates of heart disease and diabetes in Bangladesh are among the highest in the world, because when these babies are fetuses, they're not being fed correctly. There's this malnutrition in place, which means that the child gets caught up in this cycle of malnutrition. So it's just absolutely incredible. And so much of this the malnutrition is rooted in the subjugation of women. This is a real problem that the Hunger Project tries to eradicate as part of the way that it does its work. One of the things that I was really shocked to learn, actually, this really got me, guys. Check this out. In 1994, the UN at their women's conference did this, they'd done studies, and they were sharing about these studies at the women's conference in 94. And I'm hoping I'm getting the details of this right. It's just from what I'd written down that Kathy shared while we were there. They looked and were studying malnutrition in South Asian babies, so India, Bangladesh, etc., and African babies. What they found was that half of South Asian babies are malnourished, and a third of African babies are malnourished. So why, bearing in mind that there's similar resources in both areas, why is there such a discrepancy in terms of malnutrition between these areas? And what the UN found, and I quote, is that malnutrition is rooted in gender inequality. Malnutrition is rooted in gender inequality. And this is one of the key things that the Hunger Project is striving to equalize in not just Bangladesh but everywhere it works, is really empowering women, because you know research upon study upon research shows that when you empower women, you transform lives. It's not just the family gets fed, the community gets taken care of. Things transform when you educate and empower women. So, kind of different problems to the problems we have. But what I see with, if you look at the problems we have in the West and you look at the problems that countries like Bangladesh have, what there is this incredible opportunity for partnership, an incredible opportunity for partnership, where when we step into being connected and our fully self-expressed versions of ourselves, we can facilitate the empowerment and the full self-expression and dignity of people in countries like Bangladesh, so that we get our hungers met. These things here, connection, search for meaning. We're hungry too, right? We are so hungry here. If you let yourself be hungry, and they're hungry there, there's just this amazing opportunity for partnership. And again, this is one of the things I love about the Hunger Project, is a sense of partnership. It's not about giving charity. It's not about aid. It's about partnering with these people to help them to become the person they need to be to end their own hunger, which is really where it starts. So, having kind of set is this making sense, guys? Is this making sense for you? Have you got any questions so far, or how's it sitting with you? I just want to kind of give you a bit of a frame up of things. Michelle Holmes has written in and saying it makes sense on a cellular level. I love it. That's great. Joanna's saying yes, amazing, awesome, cool. So I'm just wanting to kind of paint a bit of a picture here before we kind of jump in and kind of have a look at some of these leadership lessons. So the pillars of leadership, as I say, I could have come up with 18 different things from my journal of stuff that I got, gang, while I was there. It was extraordinary. But I just want to share with you 3 of them. And the 3 that I've chosen to share are vision, commitment, and action. And there's an important reason why I've chosen these 3, because these are also the pillars of the training that animators, they're called animators. Now, animators are volunteer trainers. Animators are people from the villages in Bangladesh. They attend a training put on by the Hunger Project, yeah, and they learn to um, how to go back to their villages and run workshops in their villages to transform the mindsets of the people in their villages, such that they can mobilize their own resources to end their own hunger. So, the extent of what the Hunger Project invests in really is in the training of people. And the workshop that the animators take back to their villages is called the Vision Commitment Action Workshop. And I had the great privilege of sitting in on the beginnings of one. I'm like, it's all about me. The 14 of us had the great privilege of sitting in on this workshop and seeing how it was run in the villages. And oh my God, like, for those of you who've done speaker training with me, and I know many of you on the line have attended a speaker training with me, I swear to God, if you've read my book where I talk about the 7-shift presentation formula, effective presentation formula, these guys are following the formula. They're creating connection up front. They're getting responsiveness better than most of you do. Like, it's amazing. They're getting people shouting back and sharing with each other. They're getting permission. They were getting permission for what it was going to look like and what the style of it was going to be and what actions they were going to take at the end. It was just following my 7-step formula to the letter, if you're familiar with that. But this is why I chose to kind of these 3 pillars that really stood out for me. I saw so many examples of vision, of grand vision beyond, village thinking. of commitment that made me feel humiliated and lazy in the presence of it, and of action and momentum and a collective force to a common goal, where I just thought, oh my God, if my clients had half as much momentum as these women here in the villages, then, their lives would transform. So I chose vision, commitment, and action because they're such powerful pillars in the training that the Hunger Project does in the villages of Bangladesh, but also because I just saw them demonstrated over and over and over again in the villages. So let's start with vision, having a grand vision. I believe that for us in the West, if we want to create, a breakthrough in our business or a breakthrough in our relationships or a breakthrough in any area of our lives, a spiritual breakthrough, we need to have a vision much greater than the breakthrough we want to have. And this is the takeaway lesson, I think. I think John D. Martini once said, if you want to have a local impact, you have to think, you have to think nationally. If you want to have a national impact, you need to have a vision that's international. If you want to have a global impact, you need to have a vision that's, universal. And what I saw demonstrated time and time again in the villages here in Bangladesh was exactly that. A grand vision beyond the breakthrough that they wanted to have. So, if right now you're not making the kind of money you want to be making, then think bigger than making more money, right? It's not just about making more money. If you want to have, if you haven't found Mr. Right that yet, then think of a vision bigger than just finding Mr. Right. Like, what's a vision that would call you forward to become the kind of person that would magnetize Mr. Right that's got nothing to do with relationships? Like, think bigger. This gentleman here, his name is Bida. And you can see here, this is like a little kind of grass roof structure with no walls. And right next to this beautiful rice paddy, like the view from this, I think is one of the best views from a school I've ever seen. But Bida, for the last 20 years, has been running a remedial school for at-risk children. All of these children here are not keeping up in school. And so Bida knew that he wanted to make a difference. And so he realized that education is the key, and this is it. Many of you have seen recently a movie coming out called Half the Sky. I highly recommend reading the book, seeing that movie that's coming out. Write this down, guys. It's called Half the Sky by Nicholas Kristof and Cheryl Woodun. And in there's so many studies in that book. I'm kind of holding it up and showing it to you. I know you can't see it. It's sitting here right next to me. So many studies in this book show that education is the thing that changes the fabric of society. It's not putting in a water pump somewhere. It's not setting up a medical center. If you want to change and transform long-term the fabric of society, you educate. And Bidha sees this. So he set up this, he knew that at-risk children, if they can't keep up in school, they're going to drop out. And if they drop out, the village, the community, the employment opportunities, everything goes down. So he was running this remedial school for at-risk children. He was trained as an animator by the Hunger Project. Now, interestingly, Bidhar is one of these people who was already he was running the school. He was making a difference before he connected with the Hunger Project. And so we said to him, well, what difference did your animator training with the Hunger Project give you? What difference did it make for you? And he said that prior to doing that training, he wasn't really sure that what he was doing was helpful or useful. He was kind of feeling, his word wasn't disheartened, but that was the word I took away, like, that it was hard work and, was it all getting paid off? He runs this school as a volunteer. Having once he'd done that training, he said it just gave him a totally new lease on life and a recommitment to what he was doing. And since being trained as an animator about 10 years ago, he's just like, this school is having wider and wider impact. And interestingly, with him, he's a volunteer. He has no other job. He doesn't get paid for this. Every parent of every child here who can, not even those who can't, but who can, give him about a handful of rice every year for doing this. It's totally voluntary. So this man survives on the handfuls of rice that he gets from the parents of these children when they can spare it. Now, show me someone who's that got a vision like that in in the UK or in Australia, like just showing up and giving at that level. It's incredible. But the work, once he was trained as an animator, things kind of went a little further, and he attracted, because of his grand vision, the incredible commitment of these three beautiful ladies. Satni, Chitra, and Julie are their names. Now, they were in grade 9 and grade 12. So what's that, like 14, maybe 13 and 16 years old, give or take? Satni, Chitra, and Julie were my first wow moment in the villages when we met them and we were asking them some questions about what they do. So they were trained by the Hunger Project as part of their Youth Ending Hunger initiative. So there's many kind of programs that the Hunger Project runs in Bangladesh. Training up animators to run the Vision Commitment Action workshops is one of them. Youth Ending Hunger is another, how to mobilize youth to be a part of the solution for ending hunger. So they were trained by the Hunger Project as part of that. And what these girls do is they now volunteer their time for Bidha in his school. Now, these are teenage girls in Bangladesh. So just so you know what their life probably looks like, they'll wake up in the morning, help their mother get their younger siblings organized, nappies changed, cleaned up, fed, go out and probably collect the eggs from the poultry farm or do whatever it is, the household chores, clean up. Dad might get up around 9, 10 o'clock or something. And then before school, they go off to the remedial school and they give an hour or two of their time before they attend their own classes. Then they go off and attend their own classes. And then at the end of the school day, they come back to the remedial school and give another couple of hours. Now, I don't know if any of you have got teenagers, but these girls are driven by a vision beyond just helping out at the remedial school. Kathy asked them, said to them, Julie, why do you do this? You must be very, very busy, and you're young girls. There's so many other things you could be doing with your time. Why do you give so much of your time here at this remedial school? And this is a verbatim quote of how they responded. Obviously, they responded in Bangla. They said, well, all three of us, we are a stand for a Bangladesh free of illiteracy. Here we are in the middle of a village, which we have driven 2 hours to get to, off the beaten track, had to get into, go through tiny little lanes, and rickshaws are avoiding us everywhere we go. We're in the middle of nowhere, in a village that maybe has, I don't know, maybe a few hundred people in it. And Satni, Chitra, and Julie are saying, we are a stand for a Bangladesh free of illiteracy. Now, that is a grand vision for girls this age. That is what has them show up every day. It's not about just making a difference for those children. They're a stand that Bangladesh is illiteracy free. Like, whoa, right? Oh my God. Oh my God. This is just, it just blew me away to hear that. So my question of you is, what's your vision? What's the breakthrough you want to have? Think about a vision that's bigger than that breakthrough. I really, truly believe, after what I've seen here, that unreasonable action is called forth by an unreasonable vision. Spending 2, 3, and 4 hours of your day every day at a remedial school when you're a teenage girl, and teenage girls there have the same kind of hormones and the same kind of wants and needs as teenage girls in the UK and Australia, yet they're giving all of this time because they have an unreasonable vision for what Bangladesh is, not just their village, not just their union. Union's kind of like a council, for want of a better way of putting it, a local kind of government area. Not just their region, but for their whole country, an unreasonable vision. Are you thinking big enough for the kind of results you want to be creating in your life. So what I want to do right now is just pause for a second and let's take this home. Let's bring it back to us here. And I want you to grab your pen and paper and write down a vision that could excite you. And notice that I'm saying it doesn't necessarily excite you. I guess I really get that, I've just come back off the plane from Bangladesh and I'm so charged up. It's insane. You may or may not have emotional access to that vision yet. It's okay if you don't. This is not, you don't have to commit to this vision right now. It's just, what are the dreams that you've had in the past? Deb, who was taking us through the leadership journey in Bangladesh, had us do an exercise of writing down our dreams. And as soon as she said, this is not about committing to the dreams, just write them down, there was a great sense of freedom for me. And I wrote down all sorts of visions and dreams. So what is a vision that could excite you if you allowed yourself to really get reconnected? If you knew you couldn't fail, if you knew that anything was possible, what's a vision that could excite you? And when you've written it down, I'd love for you to type it in and share that with me. Like type it in. Maybe we can share a couple of visions with each other, or actually maybe you want to share your vision with everybody live. Let's take a couple of shares. If you'd like to share your vision, why don't you go ahead and raise your hand by putting your little yellow hand up there, and it doesn't have to be a big vision. It doesn't have to be the end of illiteracy in Bangladesh, but maybe there's something. Shan, I can see that Shan Young has her hand up. Let's come and say hello to Shan. You there, Shan?
Hi, how you doing?
I'm really well, thank you, darling. How are you?
I'm good. Well
Good.
done on your work.
It's amazing. Now, share your vision with us, Shan. What's your vision?
My vision is heartbeat education, Earthship centres Africa-wide, using composting toilet systems to eradicate, the illnesses that are caused by lack of sanitation. You can also replenish the soil using these systems, and the Earthship centres can be built out of tires, cans, and rubbish. And it can bring
Wow.
communities together and educate them and bring them back to their heart centers so they can stop bringing poverty to their self with their feelings. So yeah, it's an Africa-wide thing, and that's what drives me.
I love it, Shan. That's just awesome. This is one of the things we've got in Bangladesh is that sanitation is such an overlooked thing, but just so crucial to get sorted. It's just awesome.
Hmm.
Thank you, Shan. That's really inspiring. Yay! Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's hear from somebody else. Who else would like to share their vision? I can see that Heidi has her hand up. Heidi McLaughlin. Let's come and say hello to Heidi. Are you there, Heidi?
It's actually David, but I had it under Heidi's name at the moment. Can you hear me?
I'm going to say that doesn't sound like a Heidi. Hey, David, how are you?
Very well. Heidi's around as well. Our big vision is actually to help plant 1 million trees in 10 years in Madagascar. We've actually
Wow.
started. We're up to 10,000 trees, mainly because Madagascar is one of those really poor countries,
Yeah.
and by basically giving them work, it changes basically their entire ecosystem of taking them out of poverty, and at the same time reforesting the land, which actually brings back the water. It's just turned into a desert, literally.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's our vision. Yeah, so we've done 10,000 trees so far, but yet our quota is to try and get 100,000 a year. But we realise the first 2, 3 years may be a bit difficult, but we feel like we'll more than do 1 million trees in 10 years.
Oh, fantastic, Dave. That's
Yeah,
awesome. That's awesome. I love that vision. Thank you so much for sharing.
no problems. Thank you.
Yay. This is so cool. We've got so many incredibly inspiring people on the line. It's so fantastic. Uh, Michelle's written and said, I'm too emotional to share. I love it. That's great. All right, gang. Well, let's pause there and we'll continue on our merry little way here. I just want to do a quick time check. Okay, cool. We've got 15 minutes or so here left to go. So we'll get my little skates on. So the next thing I want to share here is the next pillar of leadership that I really got was this power. Oops, wrong way. Hang on. Where are we? Sorry, out of control. The power of commitment. The power of commitment. And this for me was probably the most profound learning. I had, as Grace and Ilan, who I've just seen, who's also on the line, some of my fellow travelers in Bangladesh. Um, uh, will attest. Probably my biggest breakdown moment was really in getting how uncommitted I was. And for those of you who kind of know me or have been part of my community for a while, that might seem kind of not true. Looking from the outside in, you might think, God, Jo, she's so committed. She's so up to stuff. But I really got that my commitment's pretty conditional. My commitment's conditional to that I enjoy it. And, um, uh, there's a lot of conditions on my commitment. So I can get very committed to things, but it's conditional. As Badil said at one point, in the West, we tend to get committed until we can't be bothered being committed anymore. I've really got that. As I say, I was not only humbled by the level of commitment I saw in the villages, but actually humiliated on a couple of occasions where I really I was incredibly saddened and, yeah, really let down by myself about how not committed I am. And it really upset me. And it continues to upset me, as you can probably hear. We let ourselves off the hook. We'll be committed until we can't be bothered being committed anymore. But in the villages, that is just not the case. One of the places we went to, one of the councils there, one of the unions, was a rally that was organised by about 4 or 5 of the local villages. They all came together. And one of the key things, as we said, was ending the subjugation of women. And so they had this rally to stop early marriage, was one of the things. There are women in these, girls, they're not even women, in these villages getting married at 12 and 13 years old, having their first child at 13. Now, if you've got daughters, can you imagine them getting married and basically then not leaving their home, becoming, just I hate to even think, like at 12 and 13 years old. Remember how mature you were at 12 and 13 years old? Imagine getting married at that age. So early marriages is the biggest thing that stops girls continuing their education. And the other thing was to stop eve teasing. And I thought, what's eve teasing? When I first saw that and saw this little sign, what's eve teasing? And eve teasing is the name that the Bangladeshi give, to, usually boys who tease girls who go to school, and they tease them for going to school and bully them and, throw their books in the dirt, that kind of stuff, so that girls eventually drop out of school because they can't put up with the teasing that they get as part of it. The commitment that these villages were coming together to demonstrate and to really rally around and demonstrate to the other villages, the other people in the village around them, was this commitment to gender equality. And they had a play going on there that was demonstrating, the impact of eve teasing and why, you shouldn't do early marriages. It was actually, they were amazing actors. It was really quite funny and, heartwarming to watch. It was fascinating. But it was so profound to come to this village and see their commitment, the commitment in the eyes of men, of women, and of children to this, no, we're not okay with early marriages. In this union, they had stopped 146 early marriages, which is pretty powerful considering that it is a cultural norm. The women leaders and the animators there, if they hear about an early marriage that's going to happen, they step in and they have the conversation and they create it with the people involved that that's not okay and here's why. And they're actually stopping early marriages, which is great. In this same village, commitment was demonstrated so powerfully to me by a group of teenagers. And there was probably about 15 of them, girls and boys, 13 to 16 years old. And they had, there was a little building, and I mean little, like about the size of my office that I'm sitting in here currently. It's wasn't big at all. And this building wasn't really being used in the local village area except for weddings and so on. And so they had been trained by Youth Ending Hunger, by the Hunger Project. And so they had created their vision for what they wanted for Bangladesh. And so what they did was they rallied together, this group of teenagers, and within 3 months created this into a library. and they got books donated from all over the union to their library. And out of their little library now, they were so proud to show us this library. It was extraordinary, and they've got three, two bookshelves, two shelves on their bookshelf full of books. They were so proud to show us this incredible library they created. Not just is it now a library to that children can borrow from, and there's no membership fees or anything, but also these teenage boys and girls are offering free coaching for over 250 other students in their area. I don't know what your teenagers are up to, but these teenagers are up to ending illiteracy. It's just incredible, they're there, they're showing up after school, and they're supporting. This is the thing, right? The way the Hunger Project works is so much about dignity and self-reliance. It's not about, well, we'll fund the library for you. Do you know? It's about, if you want the greatest force in ending hunger in the world is the mobilization of the hungry. It's just so clear to me now, having been there and seen it. It fosters dignity, it fosters self-reliance, and it fosters this kind of action that you're seeing in these villages. It's just extraordinary. So my question for you is, are you committed? Or like me, are you committed while it's comfortable? Are you committed beyond discomfort? Are you committed even when it gets hard? I looked up the etymology of the word commitment. I love etymology of words. There's a definition in 1610, the origin of it, which is the committing of oneself, a pledge or a promise, which is similar to kind of the word, how we use the word now. But I was interested to note that in the 14th century, commitment came from to unite, connect, and come together. And if you think about commitment from a marriage perspective, it is about a uniting, a connecting, a coming together. Yet in the West, how do we commit? We commit in isolation, right? We commit alone. We commit, quietly in our little office for today to get this much stuff done. We don't unite. We don't connect. We don't come together in a way that transforms the very fabric of society, not the way that these guys are in the villages. So, think about commitment. If you're married, and for me, this was a real distinction for me. I'm married. I get what commitment is in the context of marriage. It means some days I hate Greg and I want to poke his eyes out, but I love him enough to show up every day and be committed to him and him becoming a better and greater person and me growing in relationship with him. Loving him no matter how much I hate him, basically. And that's commitment. I really got that when I thought about it that way. So, what are you going to marry? What are you committing to? And again, I'd love to hear some shares. Perhaps type them in, or we can really, if you'd like to, I'll put all the hands down just now. If you'd like to share live, raise your hand up. What are you committing to? What are you committing to? I'd be really fascinated to hear your commitments. Michelle Holmes says, happy children, truly happy children. I love it. That's awesome. So you can be committed that every child on the face of the planet is happy. Yeah. Now, you don't know, may or may not know what actions that's going to call forth, or who you're going to need to be in the process, but that's definitely something awesome. Awesome. I love it. Sean says, increasing security. I love it. Awesome. So what are you committing to? Write it down, share it, get committed, guys. Committed means taking actions when it's uncomfortable and when it's not right. Leila says commitment to creating nutritional meals for the family. Awesome. Giving nutritional meals for family. I love it. Yay. Good one. We're in the right track. So that brings me to the final pillar, which is action. And what I really got is, in the villages, they're not perfectionists. They're not trying to get it perfect. They're not waiting for it to be perfect before they take action. They take action in the face of they're not even thinking about perfection or imperfection. They're just in action. Action breeds momentum. We went to a union called I don't know if I'm going to say this, Shatgambuj Union. And we attended a meeting there of a number of women's self-help groups. Now, this lady here in the photo, her name is Taslima. She was the leader of one of the groups here. And she was just such an inspiring woman to speak to. You just got how in action, not only her, but her whole group had been. these women really demonstrate that despite having no resources, like little to no resources, the only resource they have is their commitment, they create opportunities that would make you quake in your boots and feel like like you're just a lazy bones. That's what it was for me. And again, coming back to the way the Hunger Project works, it's not about giving resources to these people. It's about mobilizing their own inner resources. And this is what happens. Yeah. So, how this works is like 15, 20 women came together in a village and formed a self help group. They each put aside about 5 or 10 taka a week, as much as they could afford each week, into a collective pot. Now, just so that's about 5 pence, 10 pence, 10 cents, it's not much per week. But each woman in the 15 or 20 would bring in and put this money into the collective pot until it added up to a decent amount. And then they would loan that money out to one of the women, and she would use it to buy some poultry, to start a poultry farm. Then, by selling the eggs, she would pay the loan back with interest. The pot has now grown in the middle, and they lend it out to another of the ladies, and she might use it to start a little sewing business, buy a sewing machine, and she pays it back with what she's been able to make. So this is like microfinance, but we didn't even lend the seed capital. They created their own seed capital, and the ownership that these women have of this, because it's their seed capital, is amazing. Now Taslima is standing here in front of a big bucket full of rice. Every week now, they bring along a fistful of rice to put in the bucket, each of the women. This bucket of rice, they sell the rice at the market, and this is their insurance policy. If anything should happen, a disaster occurs, and the person who's got the loan at the moment, the cow dies for some reason, so the capital is lost, they've got insurance in the rice. So every week, these women are feeding their families a fistful of rice less than they would normally. A fistful of rice less gets put into an insurance policy for their future, for their children, and for their. Now, that is a leadership act, a reallocation of resources. It really demonstrates the power of the collective. Now, Ramina, who was another lady that I spoke to here, she realized that she wanted to start her own self-help group. She knew her husband wasn't going to be on board with it. And how many of us have got partners that aren't supportive of what, what she did? She started her self-help group and she didn't even tell him. For the first few months, she was meeting with her group of about 10 women in the Dewey group. And she'd only told her husband about 4 days before we went to the village and were speaking to her. And we said, God, how did he take it? What did he say? And she said, well, it didn't matter how he took it. I said to him, I'm earning income now. I'm contributing to the family. And it's because of this group that I'm contributing to the family. And so I need to continue the group. So there you go. Right? Despite this is commitment, this is action, like getting in action like this with a collective around you breeds this momentum. And that I really took away, this fistful of rice thinking. Where in your life can you just put aside a fistful of rice to ensure not only your future, but humanity's future? You might not have the money to give. You might look at go, well, $500 for the Hunger Project. I can't give $500 for the Hunger Project, but you can give a fistful of rice. Yeah, it's not okay. It's just not okay that there are people that are hungry and there are people that are not. So, what actions can you take? Remember that power of the collective. How can you be thinking fistful of rice type thinking and reallocate your resources? What would a fistful of rice be for you? Now, a fistful of rice for these women, that's a lot. That's noticeable in the context of what they're feeding their children every week. Do you know what I mean? They might only have 6 fistfuls of rice for the week. It's a lot, but it's a commitment to their future, because if they're spending every six fistfuls every week, they're not getting ahead. Does this make sense? So how can you be reallocating your resources? What actions can you be taking? I'd really like to hear from a couple of you on this. What sort of actions can you be taking? Type them into me and I'll share a couple of them. Or if you'd like to raise your hand and share, share with all of us, do that, and I'll come to you and I'll share. Let's see how we're going. We've just gone on the hour here, guys. I'm probably going to go about maybe 5-10 minutes over. I'm sorry about that. So I hope you can stick around. But just want to let you know where we're up to there. So excellent. So Michelle says nails and eyelashes. It's not exactly important. Perhaps I could put a little more into creating my own financial freedom. Take away my eyelash money and put it. That's it. That's your fistful of rice, right? But also remember, it's not just about creating. I believe that if we're truly going to be global citizens, it's not just about creating our own financial future. If we, and I'll talk about why that is in a moment. I'll share that with you in a moment. Leela says, put away all of my coins towards a charity. Perfect. That's your fistful of coins every week. Yeah. I look at my brother-in-law. He just gathers his coins because he, doesn't like having them in his pockets. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. Fantastic actions, great guys. Really, really great. So what I want you to do as we continue here is to jot down 3 actions that you can take towards your vision. 3 actions you can take towards your vision. What I want to do is complete here by sharing the vision of the Hunger Project in Bangladesh, because it is something that has moved me, and it is something that is working. And I think this is a key and crucial thing. When it comes to charity and giving and aid, there are many ways to give that do not work sustainably and in the long term. There are ways to give that rob people of their dignity and make them beneficiaries. You're the donor, they're the beneficiaries, and there's a power. There's a lack of dignity in it. But the way that the Hunger Project is working is so inspiring for me, because the vision is to end hunger in Bangladesh, simply, very clearly, but in a way which creates self-reliance in the Bangladeshis, dignity, a real sense of spirit and fulfillment. And Badil, this is a picture of Badil, who is the country leader in Bangladesh and is the man behind this. When I met him, I never met Gandhi, but if I did, I bet, Badil he's egoless, not a shred of cynicism, a man who is as powerful at the front of a room in front of 3,000 people as he is, speaking to the poorest of the poor, like they're his best friends. The man gets texts every day from people all around Bangladesh who feel that related to him. He's an incredible leader. I really have taken him on as a mentor. Amazing, amazing man. And he tells a story about where he went to visit a family in one of the villages, and they had a pet parrot, and this parrot was kind of under the table when he met it, and this parrot, uh, was walking around on the floor, and Badil said, can the parrot not fly? Why doesn't it fly away? And they said, no, he doesn't fly away. And he said, well, why doesn't it fly away? Has he had his wings clipped, or is he unable to fly? And they said, no, he can fly. He just doesn't fly. He doesn't fly away. And Badil's got to think, well, why does this parrot not fly away? Here, this parrot is living the good life, right? He's fed. This parrot only ate hot meals. I swear to God, he said this parrot got to the point where it's only eating hot meals. They would cook the meal and feed the parrot, and it wouldn't eat cold food anymore. It only ate hot meals. And he said, this is dependence. Here, the very nature of a parrot is that it flies. That's in its very nature. Yet by having this kind of donor beneficiary relationship of giving to the parrot, it becomes dependent on the giver. There's no self-reliance. There's no dignity in that. And it robs the parrot of its very gift in life. And I just got, when I heard that story, I thought that's the problem with so many aid organizations is, we saw in Bangladesh water pumps that had been put in by well-meaning aid organizations, but they were no longer being used. They were broken down, but because the village had no ownership of them, no one fixed it. Whereas in the areas where the Hunger Project has been, they have shifted the mindset to a mindset of empowerment, of ownership, of mobilization, where the villagers are mobilizing their own people and their own resources. They're self-reliant, and it's just such a powerful way of being. So my question for you is, what can we do to support this vision? And I asked Badil this question. I said, what can we do to support your vision, Badil? What can we do to really make a difference? And he mentioned three problems. One was ability to retain great staff. And I said, why is that? And he said, because we can't pay them enough. I thought, great, that's money, right? We can solve that with money. He said resources to train more women leaders, because it costs money to train these women leaders and animators. Money again. That we can help with. And the other one was corruption and local governments. Now, that is something that these guys are again mobilizing for, and the only way we can support it from afar is through money. There is no doubt in my mind, guys, that there is no replacement for us giving a small amount, a large amount, whatever it is that could be a leadership act for you. Really, my invitation for you is to step up and be leaders by reallocating your own resources first. And then, yes, do become a voice for whatever your vision is. Do become a voice for spreading the word. But, lead by example. Take a little bit out of your eyelash fund and make a difference for, train a woman leader. And one woman leader will impact a lot of people. You know what I mean? We really are blessed by the lottery of birth. And we can't kind of do this because we're not all in the same room. But imagine this for a second, okay? Imagine that you're sitting next to someone else who's on this webinar here. You're in partnership. And I'm going to ask each of you to bring along £1 or $1, right? You both have to put in £1 or $1. Okay, so you put that, that's the, we're going to have a little gamble here, and that's the ante. That's the price of investment. So there's now £2 or $2 on the table. I'm going to have you flip one of the coins. One of you calls heads or tails. Okay? One of you wins, the other one loses. The person who wins gets both of the coins. The person who loses gets none of the coins. This is the lottery of birth. We got dealt the cards we got dealt because of where we got born, and we had no say in that. I got born in Melbourne, in Australia. I had no say in that. Taslima got born in the villages of Bangladesh, and she had no say in that. She was born with no coins. I got born with a fistful, It's a total lottery. It was decided on the flip of a coin. And now you're sitting there with your partner. Maybe you have nothing and they have all. How does that make you feel if you're the person with nothing and they have all? How does it make you feel if you're the person with £2 or $2 in your hand and your friend whose eyes you're looking into has nothing? This is the lottery of birth. You've got a lot. They have a little, a very little. So my question is now, with your £2 or your $2, the money in your hands, what are you going to do? Those who have the resources have the responsibility, I believe. At the women's conference, this is a photo I took at the women's conference in Dhaka. 1,500 women travelled from all over Bangladesh to be there. We lit candles at the beginning, and they sang the most beautiful song as a demonstration that as women leaders, they are light showers. They hold the light in the darkness. Their commitment is to show others that they can end their own hunger, and they can mobilize their resources, and they can lobby their local governments, and they can make things happen. They were the way showers. It was just the most profoundly moving moment. Your $500 goes a very long way. You might kind of go, $500, I can't even give $500. Okay, give whatever you can. But I just want to show you that if you were to give $500 today, you could train 20 women. See these faces here in this room? 20 volunteer animators and women leaders. $500 can train 20 people. Those 20 people will directly, not indirectly, but directly impact the lives of over 2,000 villagers. Show me how $500 in our country can impact the life of 2,000. Do you know what I mean? The leverage behind the way the Hunger Project works is so extraordinary. If you can't give $500, please give something. Do not sit having, taken this time, invested your time in this, and not make some commitment today. Now, for those of you who've been in my community for a while, I hope this little thank you will be an incentive. For some of you, the giving is its own reward. Being part of a movement for ending hunger globally will be its own reward. But for any investment in the Hunger Project, and I'll give you the link to go to in just a second, any investment, and it is an investment in our village partners. It's not a donation. It's not charity. We're not setting up codependency here. We're investing in the lives of our village partners, and they are in turn activating and mobilizing their own lives. Any investment of over $100 in the next 5 hours. Now, this is really important because while we were in Bangladesh, we set up a Factor 500 campaign, and it closes at midnight tonight Australian time, which is in 5 hours from now. So I want you to get mobilized right now. Yeah. If you can't even give $100, please give 10, 20, I don't care, whatever. And if it's pounds, work out the conversions. But any investment of over $100 within the next 5 hours, I'm going to give you a course on time and energy secrets, which I currently sell. The discounted price on the internet is $247. Now, I will never, ever, ever sell this for $100. It's far too cheap. This course is really it's guaranteed to help you find an extra 5 hours a week. So if you're far too busy, donate over $100 to the Hunger Project right now, and I will give you my time and energy secrets course as a little personal thank you to say, thanks for really joining in my vision, and I hope creating your own vision in partnership. Any investment of over $500, which is what I'm really looking for, $500 will train 20 women leaders. But hey, if you can only give 50 and 10 and 9 other people give 50, that's still 20 leaders. Do you know what I mean? I don't care how we get there. But if you invest over $500 or more, I will give you my mindset of a lifestyle entrepreneur video training. Because in the villages, it's the mindset that shifts first, and then the commitment and the action flows out of that. The fabric of society changes because of it. For us, it's the same here. If we want to become great entrepreneurs, if we want to become great leaders in our own lives, it's got to start with mindset. And this is a DVD set. It's all stored online, guys. So I'm not going to be posting things out to you. I'll send you the link so you can watch it all online. And it will transform your mindset to help you remove any blockages. It's especially good if you don't know what's holding you back. There's a process on this called the awakening process. If you don't know what's holding you back, it helps you to identify what's holding you back and to release that. Now, I sell that for $997. You'll never see me selling it for $500. So this is just a little thank you for the next 5 hours. So here's how you invest, right? I want you right now to go to shiftlifestyle.com/factor 500. Now that link will take you through to the Hunger Project site. Yeah, it's not a Shift Lifestyle site. It's just a tracker I set up so it's easy to say. shiftlifestyle.com/factor 500. That's the link to go to. Click on donate now and donate as much or as little as you have available. Okay. Don't use my little thank you gifts as a reason not to donate because you can't get to whatever level. Just get over it and recognize that you've got a fistful of coins and other people in the world don't, and that's not okay, right? Let's mobilize them, give them the gift of empowerment, and help us to achieve our Factor 500 goals to really train up as many women leaders as we can in Bangladesh. Once you've done that, if you would like my little gift, email me on info@shiftlifestyle.com and let us know how much your investment was. We'll just check that against the Hunger Project page, and then we'll send you out your gift. It's really, really simple. I just want to, you probably can't see, you probably haven't seen what I've been talking about there because I had that on hold. Sorry. So that's what you want to do. Go to Factor 500, shiftlifestyle.com/Factor 500. Yeah, sorry, I just realized my slides weren't showing. My apologies, guys. I've caught you up now. Go to shiftlifestyle.com/Factor 500. Click on donate now and email us on info@shiftlifestyle.com to let me know your investment. I'll also just show you what the page looks like. So when you get there, this is what the page looks like, right? And what you can do is when you donate is you can write your name in here. If you'd like the gift, please write your name in there because then I can just check that you actually did give what you said you're going to give. But, it's an honesty system anyway. But please give as much or as little as you're able to. This campaign closes at midnight tonight, so about 5 hours from now. So if you get it done in the next 5 hours, I'll also send you my little thank you gifts. So, gang, that brings me, I'll put that slide back up so that you've got those details there. Oh, you wouldn't have seen the lovely photo. Let me show you this lovely photo. Did you see Badil? That was Badil, if you didn't see Badil. Um, that was a lottery birth. This is the photo from the women leaders conference with all of those candles, which was just so very beautiful. So leave that one up there for you of how to invest. I really do ask from my heart to yours, please make a contribution today. Know that you have a hunger to make a difference the way that these guys have a hunger, for the very basics of life. And it is our role as those with more to make that difference. So does anyone have any questions? Does anyone have anything they would like to share? I hope that, by joining me here and hearing what I've been up to, that I've been able to inspire something in you, even if it just makes you feel great for the day. What questions have you got? Any at all? Or I hope you're all off busy on Factor 500 page donating. All right, let's see. Any questions? Anything you'd like to share? No, good. You're all too busy. That's good. I'm glad. Excellent. People saying thank you so much for sharing your inspiration, etc. That's awesome. I love it. Guys, thank you so much for taking some time. Thank you so much for sharing my journey. And thank you so much for the contributions I know that you're going to make. As much or as little as you can will make a huge difference. So, please do dig deep and really commit. Don't just dream it, like get in action around it. Great momentum happens from getting in action, even in a small way. So thank you so much for spending some time with me. It was really great to connect with you, and watch this space because I'll be sharing much more about the Hunger Project in a much more integral way with everything that we're doing inside of Shift over the course of the next few months. Just articulating that with Greg and with Kathy as we move forward here. But it's going to be pretty fun and pretty powerful. Thanks, guys, so much for joining me, and thanks to Yariani and Ilan and Gracie on the line, who I can see there, who were on the call with me. Thank you so much for joining in, ladies, who were traveling with us through Bangladesh. I hope that it was kind of cool to see you there as well. All right, gang. Thank you so much. Have a great day or a great evening if you're in Australia, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.